my name is Sarai. Welcome back to the Eastern Echo podcast. Today we are with
Michael Martinez-Rivera. He is going to be telling us all about the Latin Student Association here on the Eastern Michigan University campus. Michael, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Martinez-Rivera. I am the Social Justice Chair of EMU LSA, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so Michael, Social Justice Chair of LSA. Well, first, let me ask you, what is the LSA all about?
The LSA is about uniting Latinx students that attend here at Eastern Michigan, along with any allies that would love to learn about the culture, any type of cultural practices that are within our community, or if they just want to sit back and have a little fun with the Latinx students.
Okay, got you. So, as Social Justice Chair, then, now that we understand what the LSA is all about, what are your responsibilities? What do you do on a day-to-day?
My responsibilities tend to lean more towards diversity events. For example, recently we did a collaboration event with the African Student Association where I gave a presentation pertaining to Afro-Latinx culture and the Afro-Latinx identity. I talked about certain historical figures that were Afro-Latinx and just gave some context into the culture.
Okay, got you, got you. What do you think is something that people would be excited about joining LSA for? What is something that other Latin students on campus would be interested in joining it for?
Getting to be with a group of Latinx students that love their culture, love themselves, and love to share the culture with other people so other people can gain an understanding and listen to our voices and our stories.
Got you, got you. So what is the diversity of stories at the LSA? How many different regions or countries are people, from or representing over there?
Well, I myself, I'm Puerto Rican. We have a couple of other students that are half Puerto Rican. We have a plethora of Mexican American students. We had one person show up to a couple events. He's from Colombia, but he's works with another organization here on campus. Other than that, I believe we had one Costa Rican student who came by pretty regularly, but we would love to have more students from other parts of Latin America.
Yeah.
To hear what they got to say and have them join the club and be part of what we got going on.
Is there a large Mexican American presence in the club, or?
I would say so, yes. But then again, I feel like there isn't like a big Latin American population here at the university. So
Okay, really? Wow.
But I myself, before moving here to Michigan, I went to another university in Wyoming where there was very little Latin American
Yeah.
presence at the university. So
Yeah. What university was that?
University of Wyoming.
Okay,
Laramie.
yeah, yeah.
And it's a wonderful campus, and all the professors are great. But it's kind of isolating when you can't have that
Yeah.
community around you
Yeah.
with people who grew up similarly to yourself, who share a lot of the cultural stories, parents that are overbearing. You get to visit like your grandparents and have like the food and everything. And it's a really beautiful thing when you have that community, especially when you're going through the next step in your life, which is going to college, getting your degree, and yeah.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Sarai, you want to?
yeah, could you tell me a little bit about what cultural events LSA puts on?
Well, back in fall, we had our Latin night where we all learned different dancing styles from Latin America. We had bachata, merengue, salsa. Um, what else did we do? We had a couple of other seminars talking about the Latin American experience, specifically talking about Latin American identification in terms of like the term Latinx, where does that come from? Why does it seem that we're using that more often? The history of how we went from being identified as Hispanic to Latino or Latina to Latinx.
Okay, interesting. Um, do you know a little bit about that history, maybe to explain, or?
I myself, I'm from not I wouldn't say I'm from like an older generation. Personally, I didn't hear the word Latinx
Yeah.
used until I was well out of high school.
You're from a more traditional background.
I would say yes, but I've never had like a problem with using Latinx. It's whatever makes somebody comfortable, and I always respect that.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. So you use it, but so would you use it frequently, or just kind of in the
I use it
scenario, or?
I use it when I talk about the community at large. So when I say when I'm talking about like the community at large, I say Latinx community, and when I'm talking about myself, I am a Latino.
I got you.
Mhm.
I wanted to step back a little bit and go back to your experience in Wyoming. How did you end up over there, and like what was the situation that brought you all the way out there?
Well, before I lived in Wyoming, this is uh, a little branch off. Before I lived in Wyoming, I lived up in northern Colorado, where I went to high school and I did my first year of college. My father got a new job in Wyoming, and I didn't want to pay out of state tuition at the current university that I was going to. So I decided to move over to Wyoming, and I started attending a very small community college in Cheyenne. At that time, I was really trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do in terms of what I was seeking for in my degree.
Yeah. And how did you end up coming over to Michigan?
Well, when I started attending the University of Wyoming, things were getting kind of stressful, and the pandemic didn't really help with that. It was very isolating, and even though I was living with friends in an apartment together, we would stay at home, or we would just go out to get groceries, or we just hang out all the time and play on our Switch, our PlayStations, that kind of stuff. And the rigmarole of like the tedious day to day life was just very heavy, and I really needed a break. So I've got family out here in Michigan, so I thought I would come out here, move here, and get a fresh start in this wonderful state of Michigan. Honestly, I love it here. So
What's your experience been so far? Oh, you do love it. Okay.
I love it here exponentially.
Oh, exponentially. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know some people who've lived here their whole lives. They're like, oh, I don't like living here in Michigan. I want to go somewhere else. For somebody who's lived in other parts of America, I would say Michigan has probably been like one of my favorite places I've ever lived.
I got you. And what is the do you feel that because there's like a large Latin American community in Michigan, or larger than Wyoming?
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I first moved here, it was when everybody was still masked up. I always wore a Puerto Rican flag face mask wherever I went, always, because I always had to tell everybody I was Puerto Rican in some way, shape, or form. I went to a grocery store, and then this guy was just like, "Oh, are you Puerto Rican?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican." He's like, "Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican too. It's great to see another one of us out here, And um, it was just it gave me a lot of pride to see another member of my community, so close, and because in all the places I've lived, Virginia, Northern Florida, Northern Colorado, Wyoming, I have not met like very many other Puerto Ricans.
Mm.
The only time I met very many other Puerto Ricans was my parents, my sister, cousins, or whenever I visited Puerto Rico, my extended family and everybody that lives there. So it gave me a lot of joy to come here and get to meet other people of my community.
Mm.
What would you say makes you proud about your community?
I would say the resilience and the love that we have between each other because um, being Puerto Rican, there's a lot of history of strife and turmoil from when Spain came to Puerto Rico and took Puerto Rico from the indigenous Taino that used to live in Puerto Rico, and then we went through the whole colonial era, then to the Spanish American War, where we were given to the U.S. through the Treaty of Paris, and the early turmoil of the late 1890s and the early 1900s in Puerto Rico, onward into the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, and then even now, we're seeing a lot of brave people in Puerto Rico who are willing to stand up and fight back for the island
Yeah.
in many different ways.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
So, how did you like? You said that you bumped into someone at the grocery store. I think it
Yeah.
was with a Puerto Rico flag, not flag, but they recognized your flag. How did you come to get to know like LSA? Did you also bump into someone that was Puerto Rican, or how did you get to know about them?
Um, well, I had wanted to get into like student organizations, and currently I work as a substitute teacher, and I worked I worked with a another gentleman who had graduated here from Eastern, and he had mentioned it offhandedly to me about the LSA, and I was just like, oh, it would be cool to meet with other Latin people. So it was always on the back of my mind when I was signing up for classes. That I'm just like, well, what am I gonna do with my off time? And then I'm just like, oh yeah, LSA. Why don't I, get involved? And then I started hearing about the mixer event that was at the beginning of this past fall. We were out by the volleyball courts and the basketball court, and we were all just having a great time. They made me feel welcome. I got to meet a lot of new people, and it's just been that way ever since. Nothing but good times, hard work, and good vibes.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. I was gonna ask. So, like, since you've joined the LSA, has your knowledge of Latin American culture grown a whole lot? Like, what has been the experience of like personal learning?
I've always, me as who I am, I've always been intrigued by other cultures, whether it be Latin American cultures, cultures in Europe, cultures in Asia, cultures in Africa, South America, Central America. Um, I've always just found the aspects of just how culture has built itself up and how it's become like a real thing in communities. Um, so I had a decent general knowledge of like cultures throughout Latin America, but getting to hear about different musics, different cultural traditions from other people who are from these places has been like a real joy and a great thing to get to know.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Sorry.
No, no, no. You go ahead.
And when you have your events, do like different Central American, Latin American people like represent their country?
Well, because we don't have like a lot of I would say different Latin American representation. We haven't gotten to do very much of that, but we have. I always feel like our events have really wonderful representation from these different places just by the individuals. Because I always talk about to other people what Puerto Rico is like. Um, and all anybody really has to do is ask any one of us in the club to explain our culture and explain where we come from and where we come from, what it's like, because I think we have like currently, since the club has been building itself back up, since the pandemic has, I don't want to say ended because it's not really like, but like ever since it's stagnated and we've been able to come back and do all these events, I would say for us building up the LSA back to where it used to be, I think we have like a good amount of representation, at least right now, until we can get more students involved.
So is the club growing, or is it kind of at a standstill right now, or?
I would say we're growing little by little, but right now it's kind of at like a little bit of like a standstill.
How many members are there right now?
Well, with eBoard we have, I believe we have about 7 to 8 active eBoard members, I believe. Um, don't quote me on that because
Okay.
um, and then we have a few people that come into general meetings, but ever since we started the Quince preparation, we haven't been having very many general meetings because we're putting our
Yeah.
heads directly into making this
Yeah.
event as amazing as possible.
Oh, go ahead.
I saw that in the past you guys did other events that were kind of like educating people about it, about different cultural things in Latin America, such as like Dia de los Muertos. What are some other educational events that you have put on?
Like I had mentioned before, we had the ASA Afro Latinx event where we talked about Afro Latinidad, and then we had that event that spoke about the history of the identification of Latin American people. Yo soy Latinx y tú. Um, I don't. Some of these events were before I was on eBoard. I think I may have missed like 1 or 2 events because I was busy, so I'm not 100% sure. What we try to do, the events that we love to put on are that we really enjoy putting on are the informational events because people need to hear our stories. People need to hear um, the good things, the bad things within our community. Just general information so we can lower the misconceptions as much as we possibly can, because with how things are in America right now, the last thing we need is misinformation.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think is the biggest piece of information that you're trying to fight, or what is some of the information that you're worried about?
Um, that's hard. I would just say like overall, that's a very hard question.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, take your time.
because
Yeah.
there's so many things happening within the Latin American the Latinx community, because every while we all speak the same, while we all speak Spanish, we all have our different struggles. In the Puerto Rican community, we deal with anti-indigeneity and anti-blackness because within the Puerto Rican community, there are so many people that don't want to step up to their and own their blackness, or step up and own their indigeneity and everything. And I feel like that's a big problem within a lot of like Caribbean Latin American culture. And it pervades, it permeates through a lot of Latin American culture, whether it's in the Caribbean or whether it's in Mexico or South America. We have the anti-Latinx sentiment here in the U.S., where people aren't very fond of us, and I feel like that's how it's always been since Latin Americans have been in this country for so long. You would think that the opinion would kind of flip into a bit of a more positive, because we are such hardworking people. We contribute so much, because if you look at our community historically, we have contributed so much to the genesis of the United States.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like the largest immigration numbers are obviously from like Latin American countries like Mexico and others for sure. I was gonna ask then. I don't know if you know this, but apparently the population is the demographics are supposed to change, and Latin Americans are actually supposed to be like the highest part of the U.S. population.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn up. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, do you feel like that's something you're looking forward to? Do you not really care about that so much? Or?
Well, there's the whole issue with if you haven't heard of it, I don't know if you have heard of it, the Great Replacement theory.
Yeah.
that's something that I've always worried about, especially with how big our population has become within the U.S. That it really I'm not saying it gives them a reason to say that, but it just it because our population is swelling so much in the U.S. It's essentially in quotations giving them ammo to discriminate against us and believe
Yeah.
this utterly moronic great replacement
Yeah.
theory that we're replacing the other populations of the U.S. And it's absolutely ridiculous. We come here because we believe that we can have opportunities here to live, build businesses, build a better life for members of our family. That's why my father moved to the U.S. from Puerto Rico. That's why my mother moved with my sister, because the economy is not good in Puerto Rico. My father couldn't find a job even though he was certified. He was a electrician certified, I believe, and he couldn't find a job in Puerto Rico. So you know what he did? Enlisted in the Navy, became part of the U.S. Armed Forces, and he moved my mom and my sister to the U.S. About 7 years later, I came, and my dad kept working and working to make a life for me, my sister, and my mother and himself, and I will be forever grateful for that. But the absolute discrimination that we have to deal with in the United States is appalling, because we're just here because this country perpetuates this idea that if you come here, you work hard, you can build a better life for your family. But why are y'all making it so hard for us?
Yeah.
Why are y'all discriminating against us, making our lives harder?
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, do you feel right now that America is a land of opportunity?
It is to an extent. It is to an extent because honestly, I have to believe that. I have to hold it in my heart that this country is a land of opportunity, because I've seen it with my father. He built up a beautiful life for my mother and my sister and myself, and I got to be able to hold that ideal closely to my heart, because I don't want that ideal to fade away with the crushing reality that we are going through an economic crisis.
Yeah.
We are going through stagnant wages. We are going through probably the toughest, one of the toughest economic periods this country has to go through. But which is one of many, of course. But like, I have to hold that ideal close to my heart, because what am I gonna do if it's not?
Yeah, that's true. So, do you feel like the future is bright for Latin American people, or?
I think yes. The future for us will be bright as long as we stick together and we build up our community to be something so undeniably bright and joyous that we can make a future for ourselves, because in the end all we have is our community. Our community is the only people that are going to be able to relate to our struggles. Our community is going to be the only thing that relates to our life stories. So when in doubt, just hold on to being Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, Honduran, Ecuadorian, El Salvadorian, Uruguayan, Paraguayan, Mexican, Guatemalan. You hold on to that because that's what you have. Yeah. It's in your blood. It's in everything. It's in every aspect of how you were raised. It's who you are.
And I think that that's a lot about what LSA tries to reach out for, is like to educate people about different cultures, and not only that, but to like be proud of your culture. Because I know that some people, like, you know how the whole like no sabo kid thing goes around.
sorry to interrupt or anything, but it's just like I've never been a fan of that.
Yeah, me either.
It's just like because my parents didn't teach me Spanish. I mean, I grew up understanding it, but I had to teach myself to speak it. So I don't think it's fair to blame that person and treat them that way or make fun of them because they don't know their they don't know Spanish or whatever. Because what if they know an indigenous language?
Yeah.
Because currently I'm trying to learn a reconstructed version of the Taino language from Puerto Rico because I want to reconnect to my indigenous heritage. So I don't think the measure of a Latino is how much Spanish they know.
Yeah.
The true measure of a Latinx person is how much they love their culture, how much they're willing to go, how far they're willing to go to invest themselves in learning about their culture, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
With that being,
No.
With that being said, what would you say to some Latin members at EMU who maybe don't think about joining LSA because they think they're not like Latino or Latinx enough?
Join us, for real. Join us for real, because we don't care if you're half, quarter, or even if you're Latinx at all. We take allies who are willing to take the time to learn. We take people who are quarter Latinx or half Latinx. It doesn't matter. If you are willing to take the time to learn about your culture or Latin culture in general, we will embrace you with the full force of 1,000 suns, people. Please, we would love to have you.
I was gonna ask. So I don't know if you heard the term like whitewashing. Like in terms of like people becoming enculturated into like, I guess, broader American culture in the sense like they abandon Latin culture. Is that something that worries you as a Latin American? Or?
A little bit, and that ties into the prejudice that that Latin Americans in this country have to go through, that they would rather pass for white than embrace their culture because of the bullying, the discrimination, the hate. And like it bothers me, but I understand. I completely understand because like would you want your day ruined by some dude just treating you like garbage just because your last name is Martinez or Gutierrez or Hernandez or whatever? And all I gotta say is about that specifically is I know it takes a lot of work to build up a certain amount of self-love and self-confidence in who you are and where you come from. But when you do put in that work and you finally get to that apex of your building up of your self-worth in your identity, it is one of the most rewarding things I can think of in your life. When you finally reach that, I love myself. I love being Puerto Rican, Mexican, Honduran, or whatever. It makes me like y'all see me smiling right now. It's a beautiful thing, and it's definitely not something that you should be ashamed of being Latinx because we are the survivors of our ancestors. Yeah. We are here because they made sacrifices. They fought for us to still be here. All I gotta say is, don't let that sacrifice be in vain.
What do you think makes you proudest then about Latin American culture?
Like I said before, we are a resilient people. We have fought oppression. We have fought colonialism. We have fought bigotry. And even though we have a lot of introspection to do within our own communities pertaining to our own like internalized racism within our communities, we are a very tough group of people, and that makes me so proud.
You said that you've seen a change because you don't think that you're like from the same generation as maybe some of the people in LSA. How do you think that like that generation is improving our Latinx community?
This generation is tough. they are not going to stop until real change has been made. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think what generations in the past have done is that you read history and you see them working real hard, to really change stuff, and then there's like that taper off where they just kind of like they put their nose to the grindstone, they just work, and then they just live their life, and they just try to provide for their kids, and they're just like, we just got to do what we got to do. We got to get these kids to adulthood and everything. We don't have the time to be out here in these streets doing all this kind of stuff. So I feel like they just kind of like, not to insult anybody from an older generation who are still working hard, but like some people they just let go. And I think the beautiful thing about this generation is that they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until we experience a true change within our own communities, getting through our own internalized racism, our own generational trauma that has permeated our communities. And then soon this generation will deal with the prejudices and the bigotry that permeates American culture.
I was going to ask you, kind of a lighter question, but like, what's your favorite part about Latin American culture? Like, so to differentiate from proudest, like, what's your favorite part? Like, maybe the food, or like some of the dances, or
the food is definitely in my top two. But number one would have to be music. Music tells stories. Music talks about pain, anger, love, sadness. So many emotions that are so important to the human experience that can be expressed through music, and you hear it. You hear it in the beat of the drums. You hear it in the strumming of the guitar. You hear it in the booming voices of a man singing bomba songs, or you hear it in Mark Anthony's voice when he's singing about how beautiful Puerto Rico is. You hear it in Bad Bunny's voice when he's out here rapping about the gentrification of Puerto Rico. So music.
So then, what would be your favorite genre of Latin American music?
That's I grew up kind of like a traditional guy. I grew up with old school salsa music from like the 70s and 80s. So like Hector Lavoe, Willie Colon, and then a little bit more into like Mark Anthony, Tito Nieves, Oscar de Leon. But as I was growing up in like the early to mid 2000s, reggaeton. Daddy Yankee, Wisin and Yandel, Tego Calderon. It's just, we have so much great music that it's so hard to choose the genre.
That's probably the toughest question I asked you today. So, just to bring it back to the LSA organization, Latin Student Association, what are some members that really stand out to you that are a part of the group?
In what way, if you don't mind me asking?
In a way of like, if I were to join, let's say today, like, who's someone that I would meet that would really like, bring me into the fold, or like?
Probably our president Gracie, because for someone so young, she's so wise and hardworking, and she does everything in her heart and soul to like keep LSA together and keep everything moving. If anybody else, our social media coordinator, Josh Alarcon, he's a great dude. He's great to talk to, and when he talks about Ecuadorian culture and everything that he knows about being Ecuadorian, is something that I really enjoy hearing about. So
those two. How young is Gracie?
I think Gracie's like 19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm probably like the second oldest in the club right now. So I'm 26. Gracie's 19. I'm not sure about everybody's like super young in this club, because a lot of everybody in the club are like young people that really wanted to, like, post-COVID, really wanted to bring LSA back.
Okay, got you. And she's the president,
Yeah.
Gracie. Okay, cool. So what's the next big thing going on? Like the next thing that people can look forward to?
The Quinceañera, April 6th. For those of you who don't know, the Quinceañera is a coming-of-age party for a young Latin American woman when she turns 15, but we're doing this Quinceañera for two people who may not have been able to have one when they were 15. Parties like that are pretty expensive, so this is for two people who just didn't get the opportunity to have a quinceañera. So it's gonna be a great time. We're gonna have music. I'm gonna be hosting. I'm gonna be the man on the mic. We're gonna have plenty of food. There's gonna be dancing. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah. So this is like a big kind of thing.
This is gonna be a big event, and people, I'm hoping to see y'all there for real. If you get an opportunity, we're having a lobby table where we'll give out information. So,
where is the lobby table? Is that at the event or?
it's gonna be at we've been having the lobby table throughout this week because we're leading up to the quinceañera on April 6th. It's in the student center, first floor, the bottommost floor. Yeah, first floor. Usually it's around 3 to 6. I think we should be there tomorrow.
Is it okay? Let's say you want to go to this event. Is it something that you have to register for, or can you just show up?
We're trying to get people to RSVP so we get a good idea of how many people are coming beforehand. So we would love if you could RSVP, but if you come, you come. It's gonna be a good time. We welcome everybody.
And what date and time is this? And
It's
location?
gonna be at the McKinney Ballroom, April 6th. I believe I have the time right here because I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I mean, hopefully we'll put it in like
I think it's 6 to 10.
It'll be in the description of the
Yeah.
YouTube video. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be 6:30 to 10 p.m.
6:30 to 10 p.m. Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Pretty cool.
And really quick before we wrap up here, could you tell us a little bit about what you do at a quinceañera?
Well, personally, I don't know much about like what goes. I've never been to a quinceañera. My sister never had one, so I'm learning as we go. Honestly, so it's a great experience. I've only ever really seen like quinceañera in like mass media of like TV shows and film, or just what friends tell me about it. I know there's a lot of dancing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of preparation. We have the damas and the chambelanes. The food's great because everybody be cooking.
Nice. And is it like food from all cultures, or
we're trying to see if we could include other Latin American food traditions, but with it coming up so quickly, we're gonna have some more of the basics as well to lean back on. So we have a plethora of food, so everybody is fed and they can enjoy themselves.
And it's for everyone to come.
It is for everyone to come. Bring yourselves, your brothers, your sisters, cousins, uncles, mothers, fathers. We would love to have you there.
Do you know the name of the two people whose quinceañera it's going to be?
It's gonna be Gracie is gonna be the quinceañera, and then Josh is gonna be the quinceañero.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's all the questions I have for you today, my friend.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. It's been a pleasure, and it's thank y'all for having me here.
Yep. So it's been Jay and
Sarai talking to
Michel Martinez-Rivera.
Yep. This has been the Eastern Echo podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram.
Yep. Follow us on Instagram. Eastern Echo podcast. Right. Nice. Bye.